All right, welcome to episode 258. We're creeping towards 260. Have we been lapped by the art check now, Corey?
Oh yeah, long time.
Yeah, long ago. We should have made like a race joke or something at that time. Not a racial joke, but that's just and canceled. No, we should have made a joke about racing each other. Is what I was getting at there. Right. Anyhow, gonna walk out of that one. So 2020 has been a crazy year, and we are approaching the last of that. So on the eve of New Year's Eve, we thought it would be appropriate. We've been kind of holding this back on the art check and other stuff, so that we can kind of wrap up like what we did in 2020 and then kind of make plans as best as we can for the future year. I'm not a big fan of resolutions, but I don't mind plans. So I think we're all kind of.
I think we're all on that probably same page. I assume.
Yeah.
Corey is that on the.
Yeah, so I think we should be able to make this work. So, all right, let's let everybody know where to find our stuff. I'm Joshua Kimball. You can find my stuff at joshuakimball.com. And you can also go on Amazon and purchase this book, which I'll be talking about a little bit later. But 2 stories, go on Amazon. If you have purchased it, go on Amazon and review it.
Oh, I got to do that. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah.
Although I'm going to wait till I finish. I should wait till I finish it before I review it. But keep reminding me. Because I still haven't got to the.
That you're taking your time with it. One of the most depressing things about comics is like when I'm going to be on a podcast about it and somebody's like, dude, 2 hours ago, I read your book. And I was like, when'd you start it? They're like, no. I mean, I started it 2 hours ago. I just finished it. Great book. You're like, oh, comics. But then again, then I empathize because like Cory has a similar scenario where somebody like blinks and that was like 2 weeks. Right. Oh, you missed the point where the bird's wing flaps. That took me 2 weeks. Yeah. Anyhow, all right. Where can everybody find your stuff, Scott? Scott Zirkland.
You can find my stuff. Where have they been? Oh, you got it already. You're on top of it. So you can find my stuff at circworks.com. I just realized I still haven't taken that sale off my website. I gotta make a note of that. All right.
You said it wouldn't go into 2021, so
I know.
You've still got.
For right now, all my digital products are still 50% off. They're not supposed to be, but they are because I'm lazy and I keep forgetting.
Run Scott out of business. Buy like 50 of them. Buy the digital products now while they're on discount. I'll give a good analogy to that. Like my local microbrewery has a sale on Crowlers for 50% off, and I've been gaming that for all it's worth. So I'm just saying, when something you like is like half off, like go get it.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, that my website, circworks.com, also my YouTube channel, Circworks on YouTube, I guess. You can find it if you just search Circworks or whatever. There's tons and tons of videos. I've been doing videos for a long time, and there's tons of them up there, including my series, Making Comics 101, which takes you through the process of making comics, everything step by step, all the way from coming up with your ideas all the way to finished product. And everything in between. And I'm sure we'll get into this, but I am planning on starting the 100 Days of Making Comics again. I won't be doing it daily, but I'll be probably doing weekly updates and everything. So stay tuned for that if you want to see that. And just while we're talking about sales, I just wanted to throw this out there. I assume they're still doing it, but if you guys, comic creators, if you're looking for some good comic book fonts, I think every year, Comic Craft, it runs like a sale where it's like if it's 2021, I think you can get every font for like, not every font, but each font is only like $21, and these are like quality fonts. So so I got like the font I used for the dialogue of Young and the Dead. I bought on one of those sales, and it's good to at least get one good dialogue font, and then maybe some maybe some sound effects fonts, but I got to remember to check that out. I think don't know if it's New Year's Eve or New Year's Day that they run that sale, but it's like a 1-day sale, but
Yeah.
it's a good chance to pick up some really good fonts.
Yeah, that's great. That's great advice. They base like all their fonts too on, well, a lot of their fonts on like, very famous traditional letterers in comics, and not like Comic Book Sans was based on Watchmen, not like that kind of based on, but like literally based on it. So the fonts are really beautiful there. So if you can get them for a good price, that's a great tip. But also there's custom fonts in your comic maker's toolkit. So
yeah, those, and I got a couple other font packs and things too.
Yeah, that might be.
They're mostly sound effect fonts. I've got some dialogue fonts, but you really be doing yourself a favor if you got a good dialogue font, like and now's the time to get them, because normally those fonts are like I don't know what they normally sell for on their site, but it's definitely it could be $100 or something for a really good font pack. Maybe I don't know. But I know $21 for a good font like that is good deal. So.
Yep, and it'll save you a lot of time in kerning, because it takes forever to try to correct the bad auto kerning of a cheap font. So that you get a decent font, you don't have that problem. All right, Cory, where can everybody find you, and also where can they watch your latest animation, which is brilliant and more people should be watching? So where can they go for
that? You can go to corykerr.com, and if you want to watch latest stuff, you can go to corykerr.com/online, and that has like Breaking Chains. It has the first episode of Endo XO. It's got all my links for all the things. So yeah, that's kind of it. So corykerr.com has it all, and then I spend most of my time on YouTube and Instagram, and less and less on Twitter. I think lately I've been, maybe I'll talk about that a little bit later, but yeah.
Okay.
So a little bit on Twitter. Yeah. So if you want to watch all the animations, you can go there and click on animations, and they're all gathered.
I love it. And the stuff you've been doing with Jim on Breaking the Chains is really cool to see, like, forming. And it's a really cool show to watch, because it's like watching you guys troubleshoot in real time, which I think is really helpful, especially if somebody's new to animation and they're trying to kind of figure out the ropes. Like, it's not a bad window into like the process. And also, like, Endo XO first episode was great. So
yeah,
glad you got it out. All right. Let's talk 2020. Who wants to start? Talk about their 2020 year.
I'll start a little bit, I guess. I feel like Scott and I are on opposite ends of the spectrum as far as how well we keep track of things. Because I watched 2020 recap and I was like, man, that is awesome, how organized and everything.
But I see how your method, that method makes sense for a lot of people. I mean, and obviously you can't argue with your success doing what you're doing and the amount of output you're putting, the stuff that you're putting out there. I mean,
yeah, a lot of the stuff is a little bit directionless, though, I feel sometimes. So I mean, there's some downsides to shorter term planning, but I look back and I do one of these. I do one of these at the end of every year, and so this is how I kind of keep track of it. It's just on Instagram. I just look at my Instagram and say, oh yeah, I did make that. So I started kind of, this was just something that I never finished, but this guy was one of the characters that ended up being in what later became Endo XO. But this was going to be just a dumb little short. And I kind of did a bunch of weird little shorts and what they call bumpers. So I did a lot of those. I did a lot of those kind of bumpers and a lot of intros to things. So like this is the intro to the Indiemation Conversation, which is a show I started with Jim. I kind of wrapped up the last year's 2019's big project was that this guy. And so that short won some awards and stuff, and I kind of was still getting some of those before kind of COVID hit. And then I started making assets for this thing. I did some storyboards. I taught myself how to do character animator, Adobe Character Animator, so that you can get like lip sync and stuff like that. Yeah, and so the rest of it was really, I got some sponsors this year on some of my content, and so this is sponsored content from Aurora. I had a couple other people sponsor some different things. I did the I'm Just a Bill parody with the First Amendment. I'm trying to think, and this is all older stuff that I was reposting. I worked with some of these guys from some of those podcasts. So I did some pixel art. Yeah, a lot of experimentation. I don't know that I really finished that many projects as much as used projects by way of experimenting. Like this one was just me trying to figure out how to do more of like a stop motion look in After Effects. I did a couple of fake commercials, like This Is Journey Through. I interviewed Sean Crystal. That was cool. I did another animation about the Electoral College, which got me shadow banned on Instagram. A little bit. Here's the final one of that. So not a ton. I started to get into designing a little bit of patches, but a lot of the stuff is well, I mean,
just animated shorts and series and all that.
Yeah, it's quite a lot, Cory.
I know, but I look at this. Like, here's my top 9 from this year, and one of these is from 2019 that I guess continued to be popular. I don't know. Anyway, but it was for the last year, and I mean, some of these are just like assets for the same thing. Like these hands, this motorcycle, and this pile of stuff is all for something that I finished in September and just released yesterday. So I don't know. To me, it feels like maybe I'm comparing apples and oranges, but like in years past where I've done a sticker stint or the anthology or something like that, I was finishing more. I had more finished products, more finished projects. And so anyway, I'm still finishing stuff, but it just doesn't feel like I did much this year. I don't know.
I can kind of see what you're saying. I mean, I don't agree with you, but I can see where the perspective would come from, because I think with animation, there's so many assets within it but you end up with like one product out of it. So if you have like 10 animations, it still feels like less than like 20 illustrations.
Right.
Like, but it's not. I mean, it's like, hundreds of illustrations within it. So I think that's something I would keep in mind when you're comparing the apples and oranges. Like that's a lot of work, man. And I'm really excited about what you currently are working on. And I'm glad you got over the hurdle and figured out a way with the kind of semi-collaboration that didn't work out too well with the sound.
Yeah.
Kind of getting over that hurdle, I think, is really cool, because I think you're going to be making more of those. And I'm also really excited just because like it's fun to see two buddies that I admire the work of like collaborating on something. I'm excited for it. Like I can't wait to see what you and Jim do together too. So
yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah,
that's nice to not have to draw everything.
It's a good year, and I think the explorations have all worked out. Like even on the episode of Endo Exo, like what I wasn't expecting, because most of what I had seen from it was like the more kind of cell shading style stuff, but I had seen some of the assets like in snippets that were kind of like almost like stop motion wiggly experimental animation, and it was cool to see it all together. Like I had forgotten that all of that was for EndoXO, and it was so cool to see it all collaborated and like the various styles. I thought that was really cool. So I think it is paying off.
And that was, there's a plugin that I taught.
You found my YouTube channel.
My thing is talking. There we go. That's what I get for trying to pull stuff up while I talk. That was before there's a plugin that came out like very recently within the last couple weeks called Time Lord, and that it's made by the same guy who does Rubber Hose and Overlord.
Okay.
Anyway,
is he like a doctor of any sort?
I don't know.
Time Lord thing.
Yeah, there's
so like who would he be?
There's some of those jokes, but yeah, he's got some of that lip. I think he was going to like Overlord is from Illustrator to After Effects, and he was like, how do I do like what should I name the Photoshop one? And he's like, oh, it uses Photoshop timelines. I don't know, but yeah, it does. It very much seems like
a doctor
should be coming after him. but yeah. Anyway, I did a lot of those shapes. I'm trying to find the video so that I can pull up that section of it.
So Caleb's making a good point. Was Put Your Heart Into It really a year ago? Because I feel like that was this year.
Oh, it was over a year ago.
Huh.
It
goes fast.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm getting older because I look at I can look that up. When was Put Your Heart Into It? I mean, I released it publicly this year.
So that counts then.
Okay.
It counts for this year. That was a release and it screened in film festivals and actually won some awards. Like that's a legitimate accomplishment.
Yeah, but I finished it last year and it screened in a ton of film festivals last year. But let me see. Can I look at exact dates? It just says a year ago on Vimeo. It doesn't say. Come on, give me some exact dates here. Settings? Is that going to tell me? I don't know when I did it. I can look, but
okay.
It's got to be when it was uploaded. But yeah, it says a year ago.
Oh, weird. It's crazy. So, I was just talking about this with a close friend at work, where it's like the weird thing about COVID and the shutdown and like sort of the it kind of creates like a perception of slower and faster time, like at the same time. It's very hard to gauge time.
I've heard this described about other things, but I think it applies to 2020 is days feel like weeks and weeks feel like days.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Because I was looking at some of the stuff getting ready for this show, and I was like, wait, that was 2 months ago? That feels like I just finished that last week. Like
see, I feel the opposite in some things because like for some reason I'm like, oh, I did Making Comics 101 this year. And it seems like for some reason, it seems like I did it previous to this year or whatever. But no, I started it like the beginning of 2020.
Yeah.
Jeez. Well, that sounds like a good year though. Amid a global pandemic, that's pretty good productivity. On top of also like full-time professor, all of that.
Yeah, and I mean, I almost don't want to look this up. I probably will, just to be honest. But there's probably several hundred hours of Rocket League and Breath of the Wild and some of that stuff mixed in there. That's probably one of the reasons why I don't feel super productive is I played more video games, I think, in the third and fourth quarter of this year than I have in a long time. I think there's just a lot of weird slumps and I think that's probably most people, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I get it.
And then, I mean, I've spent the majority of the year with a pretty major injury that I'm still trying to figure out. I mean, I was walking with a cane yesterday. My foot is just still kind of problematic. And then I'm still doing the heating and icing thing on my arms and going to the chiropractor and trying and physical therapy and all that. So I've got plenty of good excuses if I was looking for them, but I'm not. So I don't know. So yeah, that's pretty much what I did.
Nice. Scott, you wanna
Yeah,
go?
I can go. So yeah, so I did a video where I kind of went over that kind of some of my, the goals I set in 2019 for 2020 if I met them. And of course a lot of them didn't get met for obvious reasons, but I did the big one that I think that I probably, one of the things I'm most proud of, whether it was a huge success or not, I don't know, but I still think it's still something that I think I can get more out of. I keep sending people to it, so people are still finding it and discovering it and everything. But that's the Making Comics 101, just because it's for one thing, it really kind of reassured me that I can kind of teach this stuff, and that because before I kind of had that imposter syndrome where it's like, oh, am I really qualified? I mean, I don't work for Marvel or DC. Can I teach comics and how to do comics and everything? But I keep getting people sending me the comics that they made and tell me how they were, so how I inspired them to create comics, and that's pretty awesome. So that's what I kind of consider a success.
That's a great accomplishment too. That's
yeah.
a lot of videos, and they're very thorough and just, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and I put a lot into them, and it really upped my editing game. I mean, I spent probably way too much time editing that. So I kind of, for the videos I'm doing now, I kind of pulled back a little bit, but I still took something from there as far as editing. I'm not going as crazy with the editing, because in those videos, I think I cut out most every like and all that kind of stuff, and just try to make it super quick and everything. And and part of what I learned from there is that that's maybe not totally necessary, because I thought, oh, if I make this super sharp and edit and do really good on the editing and everything like that, then they'll probably do better than my typical videos. And they probably, I think the series in general did better than what I was getting, and like I said, like per views and things like that. But I was just kind of hoping, well, if only one of these hit, if one of these sort of went semi-viral or whatever, then people will discover the rest of the series. So but then again, here's the cool thing is that I've had videos, like I said, I did this year, and most of my biggest videos, like the previous, I think at one point right now, I think my biggest video is probably my making stickers video, which I'm going to do a follow-up to that. But previous to that was my art hack videos, and I think that video was like a year old before it like caught on. So it still could catch on. Plus all this material I can take, because like I'm getting ready to start like doing Making Comics 101. I mean, I'm getting ready to start doing, I keep all these comics with these numbers, the 100 days of making comics, not 101, 100 days of making comics. And it's been a while since I've worked on my book. So I went back and kind of I watched some of those videos, but even like the getting started one, I kind of referred back to that and just to see, taking my own advice. Yep. Because when I start making those videos, I really dive deep and I really start thinking about, all that stuff. And it's a good refresher course even for me. Like, oh yeah, this is good advice that I gave myself. So
yeah, 100%. And that happens. I mean, that happens teaching, and so I think that's really cool that you're getting that benefit, because I found like even teaching like a basic class like Intro to Photoshop or something, and it's like I know Photoshop really well, and I learned like 50 things I didn't know about Photoshop in drafting a curriculum to teach Photoshop, and also teaching it, because when teaching it, like a student would be like, hey, have you tried this? And you're like, oh crap, like I didn't know that, So that's one of the biggest benefits. And that's also another benefit of just doing these videos is you're also kind of creating a journal for yourself that you can reference. And so that's really cool. Because I mean, you have so much valuable info there. And a lot of it's like evergreen stuff, which is why I think that was a smart move to make, because it's not like it has to go viral instantly. Like I think those are always going to get watched because it's evergreen advice. And also it's going to be useful for you because like all evergreen advice, like we all forget it. Like it's like in your art hacks, there were like 3 things you went through where I'm like, I knew that, but I wouldn't have thought to put that in a video, and I haven't used that in like 4 years. And why haven't I used that? You know what I mean? Like there were a couple things in there where I was like, I already knew it, but having that reminder was really cool. And I think in the Making Comics 101 too, there's some stuff I didn't think about, but a lot of it's like basics that are like
well, that's why it's 101.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's great. They're really easy to forget, and it's like it's cool that you documented them so thoroughly. I think I really do think that's going to be valuable for a lot of people.
Yeah, and the choice to make it evergreen was, what was a conscious decision, and I can tell you it was really hard when COVID hit, and not mentioning that because I didn't want to mention it because I knew that I wanted this to last beyond that, and I didn't want anything that would date it, and it was so hard going through that whole series where all this stuff was going on. So yeah, I may have just alluded to it here or there, like but I kind of kept it vague and like any obstacle or whatever you might have to overcome or whatever. But yeah, so that was but yeah, just looking back at this year and just how it started off, and then just how everyone's just life was totally upended and continues to be. But anyway, so I the fact that I created that's a big, I have a big sense of accomplishment for that. Like my other, looking back at some of my goals that I set for 2020, one of them was to make passive income my primary source of income, and that was the case. But when I said that, I didn't mean it. I wanted it to be my only source of income, because basically all the freelance kind of went away. Like my big freelance client went away, and that did afford me more time to work on my other stuff. But that was a big source of income, and when that went away, I mean, it's been a struggle, but I've had the time to create other things. And just like I'm talking about with this Making Comics 101, like these books, a lot of times it takes a while for them to rank, and the more, like when I'm starting to see certain books that start to sell, and I'm kind of going all over the place, but what I'm talking about is one of those passive income streams is publishing low and no content books on KDP. So like notebooks and coloring books and journals and all that kind of stuff. So I started producing that. Now that I'm starting to see sales, and the more sales a particular book gets on Amazon, it just usually continues to get more and more sales, but it takes a while. So hopefully, I'm starting to see the fruits of my labor in that, and hopefully it'll just continue to go up. And then as that happens, I'm also producing more books and everything. So even though, I was a lot more comfortable when I had that work that I could count on, once that kind of went away, I was like, well, I gotta make this thing happen. So, it's been financially, it's been hard, but I still turn down work. Like I imagine if a freelance job came across my desk that paid decent enough, I'd do it, but I didn't get desperate to the point where I was good, because I had one job that was a cool job. It would have been fun to do, but it paid nothing. I'm like, I'd rather just take that time and, put it into my own stuff, because even if it's not making anything now, I know further down the road it will. So yeah, I really dove hard into that. I started doing like the merch, the t-shirts and stuff. And I'm going to get back to that, but, mostly it's been the coloring books, which was a good decision, because once I saw, COVID start to rear its ugly head, I was like, I don't think people buy t-shirts so they can show them off. And if people aren't going out, they're probably not going to be wearing t-shirts. So I kind of scaled back from that. And then by that same respect, people are going to need activities and books and things to read while they're, while they're in quarantine or whatever. So while that kind of picked up, and even there were 2 months where they totally merch was shut down, Amazon merch. So I kind of backed out at the right time, I guess. So that was good. But now that things are coming back, I want to get back into doing more T-shirts and stuff. But so yeah, I did that. My digital products, I had a higher goal for myself in the beginning of the year to do more digital products, and I only did 2 out of, I think I said I was wanted to do 12.
They were pretty complicated.
Yeah,
so
but like
that kind of ties into what I was talking about with Cory and animations, where it's like, in theory, it doesn't feel like, equivalent to like 20 illustrations, but each one of those digital product packs is like insanely complicated with so many assets and fonts, and I mean, it's just insane, like the amount of work. I mean, I'm even thinking like the building sides and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Building all this.
I did the Hero Design Studio, which it wasn't that big of a project. It was kind of a medium-sized product to build. And that's kind of what I wanted to focus, and that's what I want to focus on more in the future, because I had already done like the comic maker toolkit, and that was a massive thing. And I'm like, I'm just going to focus on smaller things because I've already got kind of my big flagship product. But then I partner with Design Cuts to do the comic book world builder, and that's even bigger than the comic maker toolkit, and that was a lot of work. But I'm super proud of the way that thing came out. I mean, that's yeah. I gotta bring it over to my site so you can get it on my site too. The problem is the deal's structured where even if I sell it on my site, I still have to give Design Cuts half, which I don't mind doing that. It just keep the bookkeeping and stuff on that. It's like, go to Design Cuts and get it, and I'll still get my 50%, and I don't have to worry about, figuring out all that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so but yeah, eventually I'll probably have to bring it over to my site too. But yeah, because I'm super proud of that product. That was a lot of work, but it's a really nice product. But going forward, I'm going to do some smaller ones, and I got some good ideas for some things that I'm going to start, but we can get that into when we talk about what we're planning. But YouTube, I'm still keeping on top of YouTube. At least one video a week has been my goal for a while. So I've been doing that. Newsletter. The newsletter continues to I continue to get subscribers and stuff. I haven't put out as many newsletters, but that's probably because I had a lot of the things that I'm creating right now are things that I don't promote as much, because they're stuff that people find it through keywords like on Amazon and stuff. So that's why I haven't really put out as many newsletters. But there's that, and then I don't know. I mean, just the digital products and the digital products like Making Comics 101 and the passive income stuff, the merch and the book publishing. That's pretty much that's the crux of what I've been working on. So yeah,
love it. Cool. I am like the polar opposite of both of you, because I have problems remembering, and even looking back, it's hard for me to remember.
I can remind you if you need help.
There's a couple.
You're posting a ton of stuff on Instagram though, because you're posting like daily thumbnails and stuff.
Yes. Well, I remember that. So the big accomplishment that I will easily remember, because it's been like, this is the fruit of years of work, is I finally published 2 stories, my graphic novel, and I got a publisher for it in the thick of COVID. And I wrote the script for the full second book, got a literary agent, have a proposal out right now that's being shopped around, and pitched with my sister that I helped her format for graphic novel. But this is my year. This is like, honestly, like a very long time goal of mine has been to complete a graphic novel. So to have this in my hands, even if like sales dip or whatever, I feel proud of it, and I feel good about the book. And to me, that's worth it too, because I've had books before, but this is like the first one I feel really good about this book.
I have a question. So I've heard you, if I'm not mistaken, haven't I heard you refer to that as your first graphic novel?
Technically, that's my debut graphic novel. I finished a graphic novel, but I never got published, so I don't count it.
Okay. So what was like Numb?
Numb, I
novel?
wouldn't call like a 24-pager a graphic.
Oh, was it only 24 pages?
Yeah, it's a short comic.
Okay, and then so Jacob's Apartment, was that the other one?
Jacob's was 128 full color.
Okay.
But but that one might still see the light of day if I rework it a bit. I don't know if I want it to yet.
Right.
I'd have to rework it a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so technically this is my second graphic novel, but it's my first real graphic novel because it's the first published. So I don't personally count books for myself unless they've been printed. If it's self-published counts, but they have to have been printed in my mind for me, So it's my debut technically, but it is weird where it's like if Jacobs ends up getting published, then I'm gonna have to be like, well, it's not really my debut, but that's not really technically my second comic either. That's my first. So I don't know.
That's a good trivia question for when you're famous.
Oh.
Because you always hear that about albums and like when somebody created an album and it was never released, but then they became successful when they put it out. Well, technically,
Yeah, when I get famous. I finished an album. I created a solo album called The Bottle's Better Than, and it's like a 10-song album. I made about, I can't remember the amount. I think it was like four? Was it four? I think it was 4 music videos for it that were fully animated, and taught myself After Effects better. Like I kind of knew it a little bit, but taught it a lot better. I shouldn't say taught myself though, because I had a lot of help and advice and inspiration from Cory Kerr on that. And so like that was cool. And then I did a ton of freelance on and off for various clients and the day job and stuff. But that's all I kind of remember. And then like there's this is like the big one. But of this, like a good portion of this wasn't done this year. So it's kind of like Cory was talking about where it's like, well, technically does that count? Because it published this year. And it's like, to me, it counts because I wouldn't have considered this a huge accomplishment until this year when it was done. So, so I don't know. It's weird too, because it's like a mixture of, I mean, Cory and I and Scott have all talked about this, but it's like when you finish a big project, I'm not really finished with it either. I'm like knee deep in the next one, but it's like when you finish it, there is this like mix of kind of like you have this fleeting moment. Like when I got the copy of the book in the mail was like my moment of like, yeah. And then after that, it's just been a mixture of weirdness. But it's never quite like you're like, yes, I've arrived.
And there's always that post-project letdown as well.
Yeah.
The post-project letdown, man, that gets me every time.
Yeah.
It's just like like especially for you, I would imagine, because Scott and I do a lot of different things. And you've basically been probably 90 to 95% of your creative output has been this one project.
Yeah.
So it's super for me whenever I get that laser focused, which I don't do for as long as you did, but I'll do it for like 4 months or 6 months or something. At the end of it, I have like this existential crisis. Like, who am I if I'm not the person that's making this thing, or whatever? Like, what do I do with my time? Like, how do I be a person right now? That all sounds super weird unless you've experienced like, it's almost like losing a job or ending a relationship.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, oh man, I had so much of my identity wrapped up into that thing, and that thing is not part of my life anymore. Like it's part of my history, but it's not part of my present. It's always a weird feeling. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think it'll be more like way more of that when I'm done with the second volume. Because like when I'm done with that, I literally, that will be that moment of like, what do I do now? I mean, that was the story. So it's like, I mean, not that I'll run out of ideas, but just more like I do think there will be a bit of despair after. But you know, so far it's been fun, and it's been a challenge to try to get like press and try to kind of promote the thing. So, and I have to say that is definitely something where 2020 is a different game. Like the thing I was worried about changing, whenever I'd hypothetically think about publishing this, was the press release game, and that hasn't changed much at all since like when I published Numb, which was like over 10 years ago, you know. But the one game that has definitely changed is like all outlets for promoting indie books in a traditional sense are kind of out the window, because you can't go direct to stores and be like, hey, you know, buy some copies, like, which is the classic indie comic. There's even been a lot of famous indie comics about selling indie comics to comic shops. Forgetting the cartoonist, I think it was like Ed Pixler or something, but anyhow, it's basically like a comic shop owner who's like, you know, stocking the shelves and stuff, and then he's like, oh crap, they're here, and it's like 2 indie cartoonists come in with boxes of books, and they're like, do you want to buy some books? And he's like, no, indie cartoonist again. Anyhow, so that's the old game. And then, you know, that and conventions. So it's like none of those are traditional outlets are there. So it's interesting to try to find other routes. But anyhow, let's get into our goals or whatever for next year. Anybody want to kick that one off?
I don't know. Cory went first, so you want to keep the same order?
Or we can flip it back. I don't care.
I don't know. I mean, I was commenting, Scott and I were having a little mini side conversation on his 2020 wrap-up video, but I don't think any of us do like resolutions. No. Right? Because those are just, I don't know. They've become a thing where it's like, you know, you declare something at this arbitrary time in your life or whatever. So I don't have like a thing or a series of things that I want to do in 2021. But I have stuff that I'm going to continue to work on and new stuff that I'm going to start. So I will be doing, I want to see if I can wrap up and finish Indoexo. Initially, my story for that was probably going to take me like, I figured if I produced like 4 minutes a month, which would be a pretty fast pace for me, then it would take me about 18 months. So that was completely out the window for a number of reasons, which I shouldn't have let get in my way, but I did. And so I basically spent this entire year doing episode 0, which I didn't like need to do. It's not part of the story. It's like a pitch that didn't really work. I don't even know if anybody watched that I didn't like send it to directly. So, because that was episode 0 was me trying to get people to get excited about like having their art featured in the show.
Yeah.
And so like Scott was in there, and Mike Emirates was in there, and Two-Headed Giants was in there, and a couple other people. And so that took way too long. But I mean, I was setting it up so that I could animate everything. So I rigged a bunch of characters and scenes and stuff and vehicles and things. So all of that's ready. None of those rigs were used. Well, only 2 of those rigs of the probably 8 that I did were used in episode 1. So I would like to. I've consolidated like a major part of the story, which was kind of repetitive. They're like doing the same thing semi heist, semi kind of attack planned situation, but it happened like 5 times. But it was different each time. But then I was like, I could probably just like Guy Ritchie montage that, which is something that I like doing in some comics that I've done and some other things. So I'm probably just going to have like episode 3 is just going to be like an action montage, like 80s music type of training video type thing.
I love it. As long as there's sunsets and an ocean.
Yeah.
I'm happy.
Yeah, but there'll have to be some sort of twist to the sunset ocean, because nothing can be happy in this world. So
that's true. And instead of like jogging on stairs, it's like an escalator where you're not moving.
So anyway, so I think if I consolidate that, I could probably finish the entire thing, which would be like maybe not a full feature film length, but it'd probably be more than 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Of animation, which is the most animation I've done for a single project. So I want to do that, and then I'm also going to get into more product-based things. So like I finished a couple of years ago, I did all the stickers. I've got prints from going to conventions, and I just got a screen print kit right here. So this is my Speedball screen print thing, super basic, and it's going to do photo emulsion style printing, and so I'm going to do more like storefront stuff. So I'm going to try to get into selling patches and stickers.
And Cory, if you're doing that, if you dig it and it works out, I would highly recommend invest in the aluminum frame.
Oh yeah.
But only do that if you dig it.
Right. Because this was kind of to scratch an itch. I was talking to Mike Emmerich on that Discord channel that he's got. And I was saying, like there's been 2 things that for the past like 3 or 4 years, I've almost pulled the trigger on, but they both seem very distracting from like my main core competencies. Like animation for me was like a logical next step. But anyway, one was screen printing. I've always been interested in trying it. I've never done it. And the other one was getting into like prop making and sculpting and like cold casting like resin and like silicone molds and stuff like that. And I've seriously for the past like 3 years almost gotten myself a vacuum chamber for Christmas just because I want to get into that. But I figured of the 2 things, screen printing is much closer to it's an expansion of my current skill set rather than like a diversion.
Yeah.
Completely off into the woods starting from scratch. So I'm going to try it, and
you're going to rock at it. I still wouldn't go out and buy the aluminum frame until you dig the process. I don't have any doubt in my mind that you'll get the process, because like it's just like it's the same kind of step from the sort of art that you've done before, because you've done color separations. So if you've done color separations, it literally is like this. It's very equivalent to like After Effects and Illustrator, where it's like a very similar language. The only downside is it's physical and it's labor. And so, and one color is really fun. 2 color is a nightmare. And like the more color you add, the more you really admire good screen printers. Cause like the one thing I never personally could get was a perfect registration of color. And I always admire the hell out of those guys who could like eyeball it. I always had to cheat and print myself little, I'd print myself little crosshairs to like line it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I honestly, I'm excited. And when you have patches up, that's also going to make me really tempted to go back high school era and make myself a little rock jacket again.
I'm gonna single-handedly bring back jean jackets and patches. That's my.
I can't do jean jackets, man. If I do it, it's gonna have to be like straight up leather. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. I just find it harder to throw safety pins through leather.
I also to me, I think it depends on the person, because I think you can pull off jean jackets. I think if I put on jean jackets, I'm gonna look like I walked out of a certain state that wouldn't vote the way I'd vote. Anyway,
it's nice of you to say, but I am a 40-year-old man in the middle of Idaho wearing a very colorful jean jacket.
But that's Idaho on you, dude. Like, you pull it off. I don't know.
No, but everywhere I go in town, like, people are not sure how to react. they're like, I don't.
You know what, Cory? You're experiencing what I experienced in junior high when I had like my punk rock jacket and I would like walk around like this small town area. And like cops would stop us and stuff and be like, "Where are you hitting, kid?" Like, because they just thought like that kid's a punk, like he's trouble. Yeah. So
I mean, this isn't new to me. I've always kind of stood out. But I mean, just being a Californian in Idaho, just by default, you stand out. But
true. Is there an Idaho accent? I don't think there is. Is there?
Not really. A lot of people will drop the G off of ing words. That's kind of a Wasatch Front kind of Utah, Idaho type thing. Hunting, fishing, stuff like that. They don't go hunting or fishing. They go hunting and fishing. But yeah, no, there's not like a.
Yeah, because I'm like, that sounds like, I know there are areas of California that do the same thing. So that's not.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that there's anything distinct. I mean, there's words that like a true Idahoan would use that other people wouldn't use. Like every car, no matter how big or small it is, every vehicle is an outfit or a rig. Like, you don't have cars and trucks, you have outfits and rigs. Even if you're driving like a Honda Accord.
This is like a pop cola soda kind of issue.
Yeah, like there's cars, trucks, there's pickups, there's SUVs, but here, if you're raised in like Driggs or Sugar City or somewhere like deep in the bush of Idaho, then it would be an outfit or a rig. So
sorry,
yeah.
I know we're off on a tangent. I just find this funny because we have relatives who came today. We're socially distancing, but because my wife's mom is staying with us from Utah for like 4 months, mainly to like avoid not being able to socially distance. And my wife literally had a conversation with her sisters who live in Utah about like, what's a 4-wheel drive? Like, I don't even know. Like, because we're like, and of course, when you live in that area, it's like, what a 4-wheel drive is because you have to drive in snow up mountains and stuff. And it's like, it's strange to me to think where I'm like, I don't even know what like way my car drives. I'm guessing it's probably the worst. It's probably front wheel, but or back wheel. I don't know.
Probably
you definitely need to know those things up here. Yeah, that's funny. I like my wife is anytime anybody travels in between like October and March, in Idaho, more than like 50 miles, it's like you have to like check the car over, because the chances of you spending 6 hours on the side of the freeway in a very lonely road in a ditch because you slid off the road because of black ice are pretty high. And so it's like, my wife is like going on a little trip to go get something. And I was like, all right, let's make sure, let me run through how you put snow chains on the tires. We bought like new snow chains. Let's make sure that the oil's topped up. You've got a couple gallons of water in the car and a box of granola bars and a few blankets, because like it's like
some flint and steel and a knife to kill any bears.
Right, yeah, a hatchet.
Yeah.
But I mean, she went.
A hatchet.
She went. They're doing this thing called nature preschool, which is just a few people in the neighborhood who have toddlers, and they just go out and hike around in nature, and every day has a letter, and so they like pick out all the things that start with the letter A or whatever, and she's like 6 miles from the house, and I get a text, and I was at work, and she's like, well, I'm stuck. And she had gone to like the nature preserve that was like 2 miles out of town and just parked, 2 feet in the wrong spot. And cause like all the snow makes it look like you're on flat ground, but like it's like a shoulder that still looks flat, but it's like 6 feet of snow next to like 6 inches of snow. And so she just buried half the car and I was like, okay, so I can get you after class in 2 hours. Anyway, so I don't know how we got on that, but yeah, that was something to do with goals for me for something. I don't know.
Yeah, I led us down that path. I apologize. Okay, so I think you were talking about if you condense endo-exo, you can kind of like probably complete that, and then that you were going to be screen printing patches.
Oh yeah.
Your artwork.
So those, mainly those 2 things. And then I would like to do, and this is kind of like a back burner thing, but I want to get to it. I'd like to do 1 or 2 more short stories in that world that I built for the anthology.
Wait, like work more on a possible future graphic novel, you say?
No, not at all, Josh. But do 2, like, what do I put them all away?
Short stories in a world that could all be combined into a graphic novel, you say?
It's something that could be combined into a collection. So this is like that's how
Sandman started, dude. I mean, like, like Sandman's a good example too, where it's like Hellboy, Sandman,
right.
A lot of these comics, like they have like little short stories that all combine to make a broader story, and you made a universe that's perfect for that.
Right. And I think
Chronicles.
I think I would, but I wouldn't call that a graphic novel. I'd call that a collection.
Well, it is a collection, but it's still collected in a graphic novel.
Okay, but yeah, so it's not a full issue. It'll probably be more than 4 pages because I felt like that was a little bit too condensed for the type of storytelling that I want to do. But it probably won't be more than 6 to 8. So I'll probably do like 1 or 2 6 to 8 pagers.
Fast, as if it's for that, because Cory, knowing you, I would hold fast to that as a rule, as if it's being edited and restricted to 12 pages.
Because I have the tendency to like turn it into a 300-page story.
Exactly. I would treat it just like it's for the anthology, except the editor in that anthology was like 12 pages.
Yeah.
And then that'll force you that, to me, I think that's a creative restriction that'll help you achieve it, Yeah.
And I've got to, part of that is I've got to flesh out the story. So we're like talking inside baseball here, but the idea is, and the comic is up on my site. If you guys want to go look at it, it's at corykerr.com, and you can read it there. It's a 4-page story, which basically Captain Ahab from Moby Dick assembled a crew and raised the Pequod, which is the kind of mystical ship in Moby Dick, and assembled a crew of people to hunt a narwhal, and they ended up arming it with like cursed lodestone, which reversed the polarity back to normal in the Bermuda Triangle and released a Titan. And so that world, it has a lot of like mythological creatures, a lot of like horror-based creatures, and a lot of Greek mythology. And the nice thing about it is, for me, is that it is not a tech-based post-apocalyptic nightmare.
So it's like a break. It's a break from your tech-based
Right. It's a lot of. I feel like if I were to tag 2020 with a theme for my work, it would be I got really deep dive rabbit holed into kind of the problems that I have with these monopolies of algorithms that are running and gatekeeping communication poorly.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you something that I thought was super funny. The day that I released episode 1 of EndoXO, which is about what will happen with the inevitable takeover of all this AI, all this brute force learning that we're doing on these machines. The same day, Boston Dynamics released a video of all of their robots dancing to "Do You Love Me?" And I just thought that was really thematically appropriate. So
I agree.
Anyway, so yeah, some of the work that I want to do some fun stuff, because I feel like I kind of just like soaked in the zeitgeist of 2020, and all of my work was really depressing and sad or terrifying or overly serious. And I'm not only a serious, sad, depressed person, I'm also other things.
Yeah, I relate to that because I mean, like, Two Stories deals with like heavy mental illness stuff, and there's humor within it and stuff, but it's like doing a lot of interviews with people about it. It has made me realize, like, whenever I'm wrapped on this story, I definitely want to pick something a little more lighthearted.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the idea of having a counterbalance is good too.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, that's what I'm thinking today. I don't know. I mean, and from like a personal goals standpoint, I bought a Nintendo Switch, which has actually caused me to play fewer video games because I'll play upstairs while I'm hanging out with everybody, kind of in the living room. And then when I come down here into my studio, I've already kind of played video games for the day while I was like spending time with the family, and like, I'll play Rocket League with my 2-year-old, and I'll play, Mario Kart with my 11-year-old or whatever. So we're like hanging out, but then I like get that out of my system and I come down here and I've gotten to work. So like the last 2 or 3 weeks have been way more productive in my studio, because if I get depressed or anxious or whatever, this year I've just picked up the controller, and I've like taken the controller out of my studio. It's like locked up. So I think I'd like to continue to find ways to still allow myself to relax and enjoy things, but not have it be excessive to the point where it's like overtaking productivity. Because like we talk about the war of art all the time, but I think the key to that is there's nothing wrong with video games. There's nothing wrong with entertainment or movies or binging TV shows or whatever. But how you feel about it afterwards is a good indicator. And if you feel empty and hollow afterwards, then like you were avoiding doing what you should have been doing.
Yeah,
and that's been a lot of my gaming this year. I've been like, at the end of the night, I'm like, oh man, that was 4.5 hours that I didn't realize, I meant to play just 15 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
And so like the Nintendo Switch has helped me to be like, because it's in a different part of the house and I'm separating spaces. I'm like dedicating.
Gaming are a little different too, because Nintendo Switch games, at least from what I have experienced, tend to have more of like an easier end point where you don't get as sucked in, Just
don't get Zelda Breath of the Wild. There's not an easy endpoint in that. It's open world. It's crazy. Link rides a horse.
Changed.
Yeah. I hate most Nintendo games. Like most of them are so stupid. They've devolved into what I call
Okay, we're talking current Nintendo, because I was like, we're about to go to war right now, Cory.
No, man, I'll tell you something.
Current. Nintendo games,
Okay,
right?
knowing you, Josh, I'll tell you absolutely do not get a Switch, because for $20 a year, it opens up like all of the good NES and Super Nintendo games that existed
So
for $20 a year. So I've played through like Super Metroid, Super Mario World, like Mario 1, 2, 3.
Metroid's another one of those games. That's not just like a walk in the park where you just clock in for like 5 minutes and walk out. Like you're in for a couple hours there.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll tell you the best way to turn yourself off of Super Metroid is to introduce your 2-year-old to it and watch him jump up and down and miss the door as he shoots for like 40 minutes. And then he cries when you try to take the controller away from him. And then you're like, I hate this game now. So anyway, I don't want to go on another tangent, so I will stop talking. So that's a rambly thing around what 2021 probably will look like.
I like it. And I relate to the video game thing, because I did have a very brief. I have an addictive personality with that kind of thing, and so I have to kind of moderate it. There was like a phone game I got kind of into, and I caught myself playing for like hours per day for a couple days, and I just deleted it, because I was just like, I will just do this, because like part of the personality that is positive about creatives like us, I think, is we see a goal and we work really hard to get to that goal, and we'll kind of be persistent at it until the goal is achieved. That's, graphic design, illustration, it's all problem solving. So you put a problem solver with a video game that's a newer video game, so it's designed to have problems that literally get solved but accelerate, and it's designed to keep you problem solving forever, and it can be a pretty disastrous situation. So at least for me. Scott, what are your 2020 goals, dude? You talk a bit about it in your video, but
yeah, it's definitely not to play any video games. So yeah, I have nothing to add to that conversation. So, let's see. So yeah, I'm basically gonna, in a lot of ways, continue what I'm doing, but try to ramp it up. I've talked about in my video how I want to produce 50. I want to upload 50 new books a month.
50?
50, yeah. So there are people that do more than that. So they're not all. I mean, some of them will be like coloring books, but some of them will also be like notebooks. Like right now, I'm doing like these Valentine coupons, because Valentine's coming up. So these coupon books with you can give your Valentine, like, oh, I'll give you a back rub, or
like 5-0.
What's that? 5-0, yes. Because at the end of the year, I want to have. So I already have like 85 books published.
Watching Josh's face as he tries to figure out what's going on here is so fun. It's not 50. It's not 52 stories.
Content, right? Like where it's like, like a sketchbook or something, right?
So so there was one day where I published. It took me about 2 days. I published these composition books. They're composition journals, but they had like a monogram like letter. Like I created I create, and for that one I used a lot of assets that like I bought some design cuts packs, and one was like a floral pack. So I designed this really what's the word, like elegant sort of floral type pattern, and then each one had a different like monogram letter on it, and then in the interior I put like sort of a watermark of that letter. So each one of them, even the interiors, were sort of customized.
Yeah.
And then I uploaded those, but then I've taken, usually I'll try to make each one of the interiors somewhat original rather than just lines. Like I'll put a little watermark or something. So I did some with like these.
Sense though. That's feasible. I thought you were talking about like 50 of like the books, like your, the food.
No, those are mixed in there. So, I mean, a few of them will be like coloring books that take a lot longer.
Yeah.
Some of them will be like the books I'm creating, like the You Can Make Comics line of books.
And that's feasible.
Yeah, I got it.
Feasible.
So like these are the, this one's just blank comic book pages. Some of them have sound effects and stuff. But I'm going to do one that's like formatted for comic strips. So there's different things like that. So I'm going to expand on that line, and then I've just got a bunch of different. Like I said, I've got a line of log books that I'm working on. I talked a little, like I mentioned the zombie one that I put out, and I created this interior. It's like it's like a daily journal if you were in a zombie apocalypse, and you can write in it how many, you write how many zombies you killed that day, or how many survivors you found, or how much ammo you went through, all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of tongue in cheek, just for somebody who's a zombie fan, you might give it as a gift or whatever. So I'll take that interior, and then I'll design maybe 5 or 6 different covers for it. So things like that. So I'm doing stuff like that, and then some of them are coloring books, and some of them, the quickest ones to make are the ones that are more like a composition book with like a cool cover. Like I got one that has like cute kaiju monsters on the cover, and just a bunch of different stuff like that. So yeah.
I know it's weird, but like, and I know you're doing a lot of these under kind of like different names, but have you thought about like, even on your show or whatever, like, when you do like a video or whatever on your YouTube channel, maybe like alternating and just promoting one a week?
Yeah.
I don't think it's a bad idea to drive the fan base you already have to products you've made, unless they're like way off brand.
Yeah, and some of them are like at the one I just mentioned, like the floral pattern books. I mean, that's not on brand for me, or my brand, so some of them are. They just don't have anything to do with what I'm doing.
Like
they're different niches or whatever.
That should be mentioned.
Yeah, the zombie one I could probably promote, like the gross food one. That's something that I've shown off before. So there's certain ones like that I'll show off.
Yeah.
I think I showed the one I did with I don't know if I have it here. Where is that one? Here, this one here. It's not really totally on brand for me, but it's this one, when I grow up, I can be anything. So certain ones I'll show off, but it's just real weird because this whole business model, it's just basically people going in and stealing other people's ideas. I mean, there is like something like this, it's going to be hard for somebody to steal because, first of all, you either have to hire an artist to do something similar, or you have to be able to do it yourself. And I'm pretty confident that, and a lot of people are just in it for like quick, like, they do coloring books. Basically, what they do is they just get a bunch of clip art, and then they'll just throw it and throw one on a page and call it a coloring book. So so some of the stuff I'm not too worried, but there's just certain like ideas for niches, especially if they're successful, that I might not want to, I might not want to put out there. But anyway, so the goal is to publish 80. The goal is to publish 50 books a month.
Because I was like, now it's 80. Now even with I'm still thinking 80 might be a little much.
That's the minimum. I've got about 85 books up there. So if I publish 50 bucks a month, I'll have like 685 books by the end of the year. Nice. Obviously, the more book, and some of them won't sell at all, and some of them will. But it's some ways. It's a numbers game, but I'm also trying to approach it from a quality standpoint. So, and I'm still trying to figure out what the best is. Like I'm doing these sort of, like I said, right now for Valentine's homework, I'm doing these kind of like like love coupons or whatever, like I said, where you get a back rub, or you can redeem this for whatever. And then so I have one, and some designs I already have. Like I've got a design that says I think it says I love it when you talk nerdy, and it's a little nerdy robot. So I put that on, and I was debating. I like, oh, maybe I should, because I already designed the interiors for these coupons. And I did one like for girls, one for guys, and but then as I'm putting this one together, I'm like, maybe I should come up with a whole bunch of different geeky activities and then I'm like, no, I have to, even though I want these to be quality, I've got to draw the line.
Yeah.
It's got to be the minimum viable product or whatever, and get something quality out there, but not invest too much time. Because if I've fallen into that trap on some other things where I spend too much time on something, because there's no guarantee it's going to sell. Yeah. Now, if I hit on something that looks like it's selling, then I may do another one that's in line with that, and then go a little, more in depth on something like that. The coloring books are the ones and the coloring books do typically sell better than the other ones. Yeah. And then you take time. So it's just a balance of that kind of thing.
Yeah. That's doable though. I could see that.
Yeah, no, it's doable. I mean, there's honestly the people that I watch the videos on, they're publishing way more than $50 a month. I'm pretty much guarantee that their quality isn't there, but
yeah.
But if you look at the best-selling KDP books, a lot of them don't look very good, to be honest. It's weird. But they were first to a trend or something, and it became big, but some of them were just really not good at all.
It just sells and starts getting that makes sense.
That's why algorithms suck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of
quality. It promotes quantity.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. There's no doubt about that.
Sorry. On top of the 50.
Yeah. So, and then digital products. So I want to produce. I said like 10 digital products. Hopefully that one, because they take a lot longer than the book. Some of them, they're not going to be like Comic Maker. Some of them will be just like a brush pack.
Yeah.
Something simple. Because I want to try. I haven't really.
I still think font ones separate too, and like maybe contact like Lost Hype or something and see.
Yeah, I don't know. The font ones don't do that well for me. They haven't done that well for me.
Have you gone through like a font, site?
Yeah. But I know brush people. I've seen some of the. You look on Design Cuts and there's a lot of brush packs that do well. So
it makes sense. I mean, my wife, for kids book illustrations, buys certain watercolor brush packs all the time because it's like. If somebody has a good brush, like, I mean, hell, if you're used to spending like $80 on a real brush, like real brush, spending like 10 or 20 bucks isn't a big deal. Yeah.
So anyway, so I've got like 10 digital products. That's kind of my goal. That one might be a little difficult to make. And then I want to get back into doing merch, and I want to, let's see, I'm looking at my thing here.
Did you mention Young and the Dead?
Well, I'll get to that. Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
So right now on merch, on merch right now. I'm at tier 100, and I'm trying to get out of it. So far I've sold 90. I sold around. What I got it written down. I think I've sold like 80. So I need to sell about 10 more or 20 more shirts to get out of that. And once I get out of tier 100, I'll be in 500, which opens up, because right now it's kind of like the designs I upload. It's got to be like I don't have a lot of wiggle room. Mm-hmm. Whereas if I get into tier 500, then I can put a lot more stuff and see kind of more what works. And I have designs already that I've designed for other things. So my goal on that is I don't know if this is per month. No, it can't be per month. I don't know, but basically at the end of the year, I want to get into tier 500 and then have at least 400 designs uploaded. And that doesn't necessarily have to be designs like 400 uploads. So it could be, maybe one design on like a hoodie or like on a sweatshirt or different things like that.
Got it. So that could be like a reused design, but still.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's that. And then with that, there's like Redbubble and Etsy. And I want to, once I have all these designs ready to go, I'll start uploading on some of those other sites as well. Let's see. And then, yeah, like Josh mentioned, I want to get back to doing my comic books. So I'm going to be doing the 100 Days of Making Comics.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's because when I look back at my goals from last year, I said I wanted to have another book done. And I mean, when COVID hit, it's just like I can't concentrate on this because the comics, they just don't. I mean, I don't make much money from the comics.
Yeah, I think that's something a lot of people misunderstand about indie comics and animation. A good chunk of indie comics and animation are done for passion and the love of the medium, and not necessarily for profit. And then even the ones that are done for profit, like the profit margins are much smaller than they would be for other lines of work. So the people in cartooning and animation are people who like love it. But as a cartooning addict myself, I'm glad to hear you might be opening that drawer again, because like I'm actually really excited about where you're going to go, and the next issue is going to be great because you're like right at that peak.
Yeah. I'm anxious to see because it's just been so long.
Draw and write.
Yeah, and because I'm going to be drawing it, penciling it digitally, I'm hoping I can speed up the process and everything.
Yeah, and on the art, you're like right at the climax, so it's like this should be all the fun shit. Like,
Yeah. Well, that's the main thing, and I'll know more when I start diving in. Is because I don't even know if it's going to go one more issue or two or one big issue or what. But I'll be writing them all together and kind of figure out where it's going to go. And there's just a lot of stuff to wrap up, and so yeah, it should be interesting. But yeah, so I'm just kind of going back to the whole thing that Kevin started with 100 Days of Making Comics, because the whole impetus was that he didn't have the time to really work on his comic. But if you find time, and I'm kind of in that same thing where I can find an hour a day, to work on it. So that's what I'm going to do. So, and it might just,
I love that.
Yeah. So I'm going to do that. And then I got to get kind of back into shape. I kind of, even though I'm still jogging stuff, I'm just not eating right. So I gained most of the weight back that I lost. And so I want to get back into doing that. And then I also signed up for this leadership training that my girlfriend went through. And I see kind of just how she is and like the positivity she has and just the, and all that stuff. So I signed up for that. And I think, and I've already got set up with the coach already. So and it hasn't really officially started, but since I prepaid the down payment for it, I've already got to talk to him. So that's going to start up in February. So hopefully that'll pretty much change my whole perspective and everything. And I think it's going to help, just like when I do YouTube videos and being more, being able to help other people that way. Cause it's just more positive. And I don't know, I'll what I can talk about it when I get to it, I will, and I'll kind of let people know how, cause I think it's, because what I try to do already on like YouTube is just, try to offer advice, encouragement, and stuff like that for people that are going. So I think that's just going to help that tremendously and everything. So.
Yeah. And I know Cory's probably had to do a lot of leadership training. And I definitely have had to do quite a few sessions with like HR firms and stuff. And it is really helpful. And it's very much going, at least from my experience, it's kind of like your comic videos where like Making Comics 101, where it goes through basics that you already know, but you forget to practice. And so it's like, there's a lot of that, at least in like leadership training that I like to go through, and I've always found it really valuable. And honestly, like anytime I have the opportunity to do it, I do it, because it's you come out stronger. And you're right, like it helps you kind of reframe your viewpoint and like kind of focus more on like possible solvable solutions, as opposed to like kind of negative thinking, which in leadership especially it can get daunting. And so it's good to have those reminders and stuff. I think that's great.
And it's like
man, you got to share with Cory and me what
and a lot of it is stuff that I'm like you said, familiar with, but I just haven't put it into practice. Like even in writing out these goals, because I'm taking a step further where I'm trying to figure out, okay, so what do I actually have to do to reach this goal? That's why I broke it down.
Yeah.
Like my goal is to make 50 books a day, instead of saying that, I want to make so much money from books. I got it. Well, how much money am I making from my books right now? To get to where I want, how many more books do I have to have? Not that that's, I mean, it's
no, that's a cheat.
The general thing is, just because I put out 50 new books doesn't mean they're all going to sell. One may sell. Typically, when you see people, when they show their, what's selling, and they don't show what the particular book is or the niche, but they'll show basically a pie chart, and like a big chunk of it is like one book that just hit. So that's kind of, that's the way it is for a lot of people.
Yeah. It's I heard an analogy at one point in time. It was the Paper Wings podcast with I'm gonna forget her name. She did the Dreamer comic.
I know Laura somebody.
Yeah, Laura
Innes.
Laura Innes. Yeah, she was talking about. She read this article or watched this show about this guy who was not a psychopath, but what's the one where you're sociopath. He's a sociopath, so his mind didn't work the same as everybody else, right? And so basically, he wanted to be something. I can't remember what it was, but he wanted to be something, and he figured it was just like if you want a white gumball, basically you just put in enough quarters, and eventually you're going to get a white gumball, right? And so he didn't view failures or rejections like emotionally, because he's a sociopath, right? But he just viewed it as, that's another quarter that I'm putting in. And so like you're putting in like the right type of money, into the machine, and eventually you're going to get that color gumball that you want. And if you put in enough, then statistics, the law of averages, you're going to get, several of those white gumballs, and eventually, that type of thing. And so basically, I think I like what you're talking about, because I think it'll really hit, the way that it's supposed to. So
yeah, I'd agree too, because it's like, even when I was really active in like the t-shirt world, it's really like 4 designs that carried me and still make passive income for me today. But it's like if you hit those 4, you're talking easily like even if I don't actively promote, you're getting at least $50 to $100 a month, like 20 years after you made it from those designs.
Yeah.
And like I had a coworker today talk about like designs getting ripped off in China, if they get ripped off in China, and I just looked up Captain Obvious on Google, and I'm like, there you go, there's 5. Like I that design has been so successful that I can't even stop people from ripping it off. Like it just appears on Redbubble. It appears on Redbubble. I've gotten bored with trying to prevent people from ripping it off, because like it's just not even worth my time. But it still makes passive income. And so if you hit like 5 of those in books, and then you get that Amazon algorithm in it, I think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And I do remember when I was really in the flow of making that a career, one thing that helped was I did start doing a design a day, and I just started doing a new t-shirt design every day, whether it sucked or not. And of that chunk, there were like 10 or 20 that worked for the month, and then a bunch of throwaways.
Yeah.
But I actually think you're really on the right path with that too. So that sounds like a good plan, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's pretty. I think that's pretty much my plan. So
awesome! I'm excited for it. And nerd as I am, I'm most excited about Young and the Dead, which I will be totally transparent and say that probably will be your lowest return for the year, but it's still the thing I'm most excited about. Yeah. Well, like my plan for the next year is, I'll just say this for people out there who are going through COVID stuff, is like, this is a year where we can't really plan. I mean, like, so we're all talking about plans, but more than any year in the past, at least in my lifetime, this is a year where there's not a lot of predicting. So, I think it really does highlight what like Cory, Scott, and I always talk about resolutions. It's like, don't set resolutions you hold so firm to that you're almost setting yourself up to fail. And also don't set resolutions you can't hold, So that being said, my aim, and I don't know if I'll accomplish it, but this is my like pie in the sky aim, is to, by the end of 2021, have finished book 2. In reality, I probably won't for about a year and a half. So, but that's my goal.
I've heard you mention that a few times.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions. Because you took 5 years to do the same size book.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew you and knew your process fairly intimately the last 2 years of that.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do to go faster? That's what I don't understand, because I know at least one of the other things that you're about to say on goals for 2021. And I'm very curious on, because you're not the type of person to just willy-nilly toss something like that out there. So I'm fascinated because I know that you have a plan of how you think it could be possible. So what?
Well, I don't think a year is possible, period. I'm setting the year because it's impossible. And that's my impossible goal. So I'm saying that acknowledging like I don't think it's possible.
That's fine.
I do think a year and a half might be very possible.
Right.
And part of it is due to batching. So that's the main thing, is like I'm batching this time.
Okay.
That's a little different. The process is crazy though. And, in reality, it could take longer. So.
No, I mean, batching will save a ton of time. Are you still going to draw it the same size?
What's up? Yeah, 100%.
Draw it the same size.
Sacrifice. Like, the one thing I feel good about with this book is like, even if the sales like drop to like nothing, I know it's a good book.
Right.
And I feel good enough about it to where, weirdly enough, like there's a podcast I was on recently that I don't feel like I deserve to be on, but when I had the opportunity to give the host of that podcast my book, I had no doubt in the world he'd have me on. It was just having that opportunity to see the book,
right?
Because I know it's a good book.
Yeah.
And that's the first time in my life I've ever had that feeling. And keep in mind, that's not a feeling of like, I know I'm good, so therefore I'm going to stop progressing. No, I'm always going to be pushing myself forward. But it's because I didn't sacrifice quality when I was doing it. I don't feel like there's pages I could do better now, and I can look at and go, oh, I could do that better now. But I don't have any like regrets about it. I don't feel if I hand this book to people, I don't have an apology. And that's a very new thing for me.
Yeah.
Usually when I hand a book to somebody, I have an apology that I have to hold back. In this case, I don't. I know it's a good book. And that's a weird feeling, and I want that feeling to repeat, because that also helps me deal with the other stuff, the realities of like the algorithms and stuff like that. Because it's like, just because it's a good book doesn't make it mouse. It also doesn't make it show up on the algorithm. Yeah. So there's books in like the top 100 that I would look at and probably not think are as good, and they're garnering tons more attention because people are gaming it better. And I'm not blaming that. I actually envy that. Like I'd like to figure out a way to game it better. But I personally just ethically feel better selling something I feel good about. So I'm not going to compromise quality.
Yeah, no, and I'm not suggesting that you should. I'm just curious. I think batching will save you a ton of time because before you would write in batch, and then you would go everything from roughs and thumbnails all the way through to finished inks and lettering.
Yeah,
one page at a time, right?
Yeah. And I feel like that slowed me down. Whereas I feel like if I rough out the entire book, that's going to speed up the process. And then after that, do the paneling and type for every page. And then do, photo references, gather all that, and then do pencils, and then do.
Right.
It's less fun, but I think it's more possible.
Well, okay. Jake Madsen, who's he comes on a lot of my live feeds and stuff. He named this the other day, or it's a term that I'm not aware of, the Slingshot Method, and I love that because I was trying to describe to Jim that it feels like we're going slow right now, but like we're not going to have to do that much at the end. We're just going to be animating fast because of all the. So it's kind of like you take it and you pull it back, and then you just let it rip. So like at the beginning, I think it'll feel really slow.
Yeah.
During that pullback phase. But I mean, can you imagine doing nothing but inks for like 3 months?
Oh, that sounds so fun.
I know, right?
And that's the catch and that's what I've thought about is like, this is literally what I do at my job, which is like, I backplan. That's what art directors do well. If you can't backplan, you really shouldn't get into art direction. But I haven't backplanned as effectively as I could with this book. And so like some of this came from just like experiences with like you, Cory, when I mean, this is like a year or so ago, but like you were facing a block and it was like, oh, just be your own art director. But weirdly enough, I started thinking about that when it came to book 2, where I'm like, well, what would I say if I were my art director? I'd be like, well, batch it. Like you're losing a lot of time, like task switching, and you need to batch it. So that's my plan. I don't know if it'll work. I mean, but the thing I love about it is I do think it'll reduce time. The other thing that's a huge advantage is my son is older. So I actually do have more time. So that's good too. So
yeah, that makes sense. Okay, sorry. I was very curious.
Sorry, what?
I said sorry to interrupt. I was just very curious.
Yeah, no, I get it. I'm curious too. I don't know if I can hit it, but that's my goal. And then like I do want to try to record another album for fun. I want to try to do like a new album a year. And I think that's all I'm going to really set for myself, other than just promote the hell out of this book. So,
what about I don't want to say too much, but what about the other book that you're pitching? Is that?
So that's why, like, I hate resolutions, right? Is this whole thing is in flux, because if the book we're pitching gets a deal, that might actually push the second book. So it's all kind of conducive on what happens next year. Because if this book that's out for pitching gets a deal with a large publisher, that might delay the second book in order to get this new book out. So it's all contingent. That's part of why I want to get this out in a year, is to kind of free time for if that book picks up a deal. So, but I mean, that's the chaos you play with when you do this stuff. I mean, I think we're all juggling a lot. So, but I think those are feasible. I think it's feasible. I just think
I'm not questioning your ability to do it at all. And I know you know that, but I don't want you to take this as like, oh, Cory's kind of a jerk. Why is he going after Josh like this?
I don't take it that way.
I know you
out there is taking it that way. You guys don't know Cory. Cory's not being a jerk.
No, but my thing is, because I know you really well, I knew that you had a plan to take 5 years and turn it into one. So I was just curious on what that was.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing's batching, and then also I'm fully aware that it's a ridiculous goal, but ridiculous goals get us there. And I think that's important. And that's something I've remembered actually recently in the last few years is like, even getting this thing published has helped me remember how these crazy ambitions can actually happen. And I know Cory's seen that too, where you've applied for like, awards for animation. And like when you're in the process of doing that, there's all sorts of resistance that goes on where you're just like, well, it's not like it's going to actually get awards and stuff like that. And then it's like, what do you know? You get awards. You send out press releases. What do you know? You actually get articles. So, that's something to keep in mind.
It's weird. It's weird how that happens.
Yeah, it's like this weird. It's almost like The Secret, except more legit.
Except real.
All right, guys. Well, we've been going for like an hour and 40 minutes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow, that flew by.
Long one. So I have family over. I got to wrap it. Is there anything we missed that you guys want to hit for next year? I mean, I definitely know. I think we all share this, but we're hoping 2021 is a less rough year for everybody. Anything else you guys want to add?
No, I just everyone watching this now, or if you're watching this in the future, good luck on your own goals and everything. And you can always leave a comment in the description or the comment section. What your plans are. Hopefully, this is helpful. And it's, but yeah, I mean, these are I think you can see that even with everything going on, all three of us are pretty productive. So if you have problems, being as productive, kind of take some of the advice that we're putting out there and how we're doing this, and we all approach it from different angles, but find what works for you, and hopefully you'll get a lot done in the next year.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Yeah, well said. I want to add, if you guys are going to do attempts at goals and fail good, right? I mean, like, if you fail good, you aren't going to regret your failures. So,
because if you set a lofty goal, and even if you don't meet it, if you get halfway there, you've still done more than a lot of people. So,
oh yeah, and it's better to be in the ring than on the sidelines. Thanks, Keeman, Frank, Kayla, everybody who joined us in the chats, and everybody who's watched for the last year. We really appreciate each and every one of you. You guys keep us driven too. And thank you, Scott and Cory. You guys are like half of my fire for the year to keep me productive. So I love having my little creative crew,
Yeah, that goes for me too. I'm sure it goes for Cory.
Yeah, it's been awesome. I don't live in I don't live in an area where I can interface with like artists. Like even if there wasn't like a COVID lockdown, like there's no drink and draws, there's no, there's a tiny little bit of a fine art community, but there's no like illustration community or animation community or like cartoonists or anything like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, this has been awesome. And the really nice part about it is like when lockdown happened, my wife was like, well, you're set. I was like, what do you mean? She said, well, like 85% of your social interaction is already like COVID proof. Like you are hanging out with most of your friends, online. And I was like, yeah, that's true. So yeah, it's been great. It's been awesome. So.
Yeah, and actually, I would also say that, like, if there's like another mutation or whatever of COVID, and we're all locked down, you guys start doing more personal art projects because you'll be way more prepped for lockdown. Because I do have to say, I think that gave a lot of us an advantage in a scenario where we're stuck at home. It's like, sweet, I got projects to work on. So, all right, thanks to everybody out there, and we will see you guys in 2021. So if you're watching this on the 1st, you've just traveled in time backwards.
Right.
And
we got
Don't
I got to
change
do my little
anything.
thing first before we go. I think we're so it feels like a art check for some reason, so that's why. But
We
yeah,
did
I just
hands. We did. What did you do? We're pretty close.
yeah. But yeah, so today we're on a Wednesday. Normally we do this on Thursdays,
True.
but
Switch it around. How do we keep track?
yeah, you can keep track. All you have to do is join our mailing list. We don't spam you or anything like that. Usually about 30 minutes before we go live, I will send out a newsletter with a link so you can find the show. And it also switches back and forth from Josh's channel to my channel. And we typically have a special guest, and a lot of times that guest is Cory. but a lot of times we'll have other guests too. So if you want to know who's going to be on and all that kind of stuff, just join our mailing list, and you will figure that you'll find out. So check that out.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, you guys. We'll see you in the future.
All right. See you next year.